so loud. Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining in and for Prevay for having me. Tonight I'm going to do a really cute creative haircut on my model Allie, and I'm just gonna dive right in and get started and start explaining what I'm doing. If you have any questions, Kyle is manning the phone, so you guys can ask away. All right, so with Allie today, we're gonna start by splitting the hair into about 6 different zones. So we have zone 1 is going to be the topmost part of the head or the crown of the head. Zone 2 is going to be the left side. Zone 3 is going to be the right side. Zone 4 is going to be the back left side. Zone 5 is going to be the back right side, and zone 6 has already been pre-cut, so we probably won't do a whole lot with that. But by breaking the hair down into zones, it will allow me to work with integrity while I'm working multiple shapes and techniques at the same time. All right. So Allie has pre-existing fringe on their hair already. And what I want to do is essentially create a mini shaggy haircut. So I'm going to start by finding my guideline, watching the root of the hair as I comb, bringing it on up, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut my first section. One of the main things that we teach here at X is talking about the 5 key factors to any haircut. One of the first and most important key factors is talking about choice of length. So with Allie's hair, I went through first when we consulted and picked up different pieces of their hair to see where it naturally bends and falls, because if I cut too much off, the hair is going to spring up and not lay in place, but if I cut the just right amount, it's going to lay in its full strength and capacity. So I'm going to continue in my zone 1, slightly pivoting off my first section, working a very square shape through the crown. Typically with haircuts like this, planning them out before I go ahead and begin cutting helps to alleviate a lot of the stress of thinking creatively while I'm working. It creates a little bit more flexibility so that I know where I'm going before I get into a haircut, think that I have one idea, and then get completely lost trying to cut a head of hair. So when I'm consulting, I usually ask the person what it is that they want, what it is that they don't want, how interesting they're looking to make their haircut, how manageable and wearable they're trying to make their haircut, which gives me a lot of room to decide what to do and what not to do. One of the other things that we talk about at X all the time is grooming. It's very important as you're working through a haircut to make sure that things stay at least nice and organized for the most part. When you are working on clients throughout the day, obviously there will be times where you feel rushed and stressed and you're trying to finish something in half an hour and you wish that you had 3 hours to do it, but by grooming and making sure that the hair is nice and neatly sectioned and in place, it allows us to work faster. And what is it saying? Smarter, not harder.
We don't have any questions yet, but someone named Alyssa says that they really like your shirt.
Oh, thanks. I think it's from Other Wilds. All right, so I have about 1 more section left in the top zone on the right-hand side here. So I'm going to go ahead and take it. And then everything that is below these sections here will be left out because that will become our zone 3. I have a cheat sheet right behind Kyle where I wrote out all of the things I want to talk about and all of Allie's haircut here. So you see my eyes wandering behind Kyle, that's what I'm doing. All right, so that is the completion of one side. Actually, just kidding, there's always a row pair. Now is the completion of the first half of my zone 1. I'm gonna leave this disconnected, and then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna continue working on the same side, just watching that I don't over direct too far into this side, but it's a little bit easier body positioning wise. So I'm gonna have Allie turn their head towards me just a pinch and do the same exact thing until I come around the bend of the parietal ridge here. These are brand new scissors, so I don't want to cut myself, so I'm trying to take smaller sections because these bad boys are sharp. Another thing that I like to think about when I'm working inside of my zones is the shape that I'm creating. There are 2 main factors to a shape. You have the internal shape, which is everything that is inside of your perimeter, and then you have the external shape, which is everything outside of the inside, which sounds repetitive, but it makes a lot of sense when you start to break it down and think about it. So through the crown of Allie's haircut here, I'm working a mostly square shape because I'm trying to offset the natural roundness of Allie's head. When I work through the sides, I'm gonna work really close scissor over comb here to crop in right at the parietal. So technically I'll be creating a round shape because I'm removing everything and going with the natural head shape.
Alyssa also asked, what is your favorite brand of scissors and why?
Okay, well,
Here we go.
Here we go. So I recently bought a pair of Hikari Cosmos and I really enjoyed them. But Kyle here got a pair of the B-Max stilettos recently, and I was trying out those, and then once I got a taste of the B-Max stilettos, I couldn't stop thinking about them, so I sold my Hikaris and bought a pair of B-Max, and I really love them. They're really compact. They're straight handle scissors, so it's really great for any kind of precision or scissor over comb. I like a smaller blade because I have smaller hands, and I feel like I can't cut appropriately to my hand size when the blade is too big. They're really sharp and they are so worth it for the money. And I also love that I also have a pair of the harebrained B-Max, and those are 5.5 inch, but they are awesome also for scissor over comb, and for their price point, I think that they're one of the best scissors on the market. I had a pair of Nicks for a really long time that I really loved that were also straight handle and very tiny, but I feel like the power of the B-Mac, you just can't beat it.
They're special.
They're very special.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just continuing through. I already sectioned out here at the parietal, so I know when to stop cutting. There's always a rogue. So while I'm thinking about the shape of my haircut and I'm working within my zones, I'm also thinking about the different haircutting techniques. I'm thinking about creating a line, I'm thinking about creating graduation, or I'm thinking about creating any kind of layer. So if I'm cutting everything to the same plane using very minimal tension over direction and elevation, I'm creating a line. In this case, I don't particularly think, as far as my plan goes, that Allie's going to have any sort of line work in their hair. We might do a little bit in the fringe. I'm working mostly layering because I'm removing weight, and graduation because I'm redistributing weight. I'm also working purely an internal shape, and whatever the hair that falls from my internal shape ends up to be with the natural hairline will be my external shape.
Emma would like to know if you are creating a layered fringe.
Technically, yes. technically it's layered currently. I believe what we're going to do is break it up after everything is dry. So I'll go through and add a little bit of texture and pieciness to the bangs that are already existing. So yes and no. Alright, so now I'm just going to check the balance of the sides. Make sure that they hit where I need them both to hit. And they do, thank goodness. So now what I'm going to do is work on my left side here. And I'm essentially going to scissor over comb a very small, almost triangular, well, it's actually, what's that, a parallelogram? Parallelogram shaped section here, if we're talking technical shapes, just to remove some of this weight because I want the fringe on the side to sit over top. So I'm going to take a gently diagonal section, and I'm not really worried about this long piece here just yet. I'm going to bring that into my zone 1 as soon as I'm done with the side. I'm going to tuck this hair behind the ear here. I'm going to break a rule really quick. I'm going to get in, plop this in here, and I'm just going to take the initial length off while it's wet. And what this does, not only does it add a little bit of an interesting look to the front of the hairline, but it also, the technical point of an undercut is to remove weight in order to create space for something else to live on top of it. So then when Allie parts their hair over, the undercut will just be peeking out just a pinch in the back, but all of the fringe will lay on top. So now that I like how that looks, I'm going to take this longer piece here and just connect it into the top of my zone 1. Everybody's still working at X right now, so Jackie is outside taking videos of the video. No. Yes, she is. We're all very proud parents of each other here.
Do you have any tips for blending hair using scissor over comb?
Move slower. A lot of times people get too aggressive. Practice moving just your still blade. Hold your still blade still. Practice moving your moving blade without moving the still blade. It should be a very seamless motion, open and close. If you have a lot of this going on or both hands opening and closing, you're going to create elevation and graduation in your scissor over comb.
Freebay says, hello.
Hello, Freebay.
Hey guys.
So we're going to do the same exact thing. What we do on one side, we typically do on the other. I'm going to come on over here. Take a parallelogram size section. You could get really technical with the squares. You could be like, here's my hexagon.
We should do that.
Here's my octagon. I don't even know how you would make an octagon, but you know what, you probably could. I'm going to take a nice little medium-sized section. Comb the hair behind the ear. No, do it again. It's always embarrassing when you comb it behind one time and then you're like, oh, wait a second. I'm going to take my tiny teeth, pop it right in there. Just moving one blade, removing weight. And then what I'll often do is I'll stand behind the section I just scissor over combed and take a look at what my vertical shape, so the shape that is pulled vertically from the head, to see if everything is in balance. If it's not in balance, I now know because I'm looking right at it, and I can come on back over and get a little bit closer.
Okay, we have a couple questions here.
Lay it on me.
One is a razor versus scissor.
Okay, all right.
It's always a good time. Does the razor cutting the hair damage the ends?
Okay. If you are properly utilizing the tool, then no, it does not damage the ends. If you, however, are incorrectly using a tool, any tool, not just specifically the razor, you can cause damage to any ends using any tool. If you are using the razor and you feel like you are shredding the hair or something isn't laying right, you are more than likely just not applying the proper actual blade motion to the hair, as well as the tension of the hair that's in your fingers. If you're too loose, you're going to have a lot of hairs that are left over. That's when you get those little pieces that are one's longer, one's shorter, etc. If you are too tight, that's when you're going to create the holes in the center. So I would say no, that it does not damage the hair if you're using it properly, but any tool incorrectly used does have potential to damage the hair. Right, so I'm going to comb this hair out of here, so I have my zone half on each side. I'm going to go back over to my zone 2. I'm going to pump up Allie and put my line in the front on this side. Is that the only question?
Oh, yes, okay. There's another question.
Oh, okay.
I'm fired.
You're like, I have a couple questions.
Only
question.
one question. How do you keep consistency on the sides so you don't have to go back and forth and keep tweaking sides?
Well, if you want the honest answer, which I'm going to give you because I'm an honest person, there's no such thing as a perfectly executed and perfectly balanced haircut. However, the point of precision cutting, or the point of working technically, is that you strive to make sure that everything is balanced and that everything is in shape. The best advice that I can give is think about your shape, think about your subsections, and think about where exactly you want things to lay or not lay. That way, when I go in, I know that at least on this side, it will very closely match this side, as opposed to going in without any plan, not thinking about it, and trying to go back and forth for 30 minutes trying to maintain that balance. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, cool.
Great.
So we are gonna work a soft line here, and I'm gonna go through and break up this line after we're done. But I just want something that will hit right at the bottom of the ear, right at the jaw. Whenever I'm determining focal point for any kind of line or soft line or really any shape, I'm thinking about the person who's wearing it, and that means their lifestyle as well as their face features. So for Allie, because they have a perfect face, it's really easy to just pick a point and pop a line on there. However, it's also really easy to mess it up because you become overly, you become, overconfident, and then you've got lines everywhere that don't belong. So I'm going to take a section, and I want control over my horizontal shape right now. So I'm working horizontally in between my fingers. So now we're going to hop back on over to our zone 3. I'm going to hold my breath, do my subsections, and hope that they match. Time to clip first.
Someone would like to know if your line was slightly elevated to soften it.
Yes, and I'm going to go through at the end and soften anyway. So if I know that I'm going to go through and break up my line, I won't cut it on the skin. I'll cut it inside my fingers because that elevation is going to give me just a little bit of softness to begin with. It's pretty close.
Erin says, hey friend, looking good.
Oh, hey. It is slightly longer on this side, so I'm just going to dust a little bit off the ends here. Erin specifically asked me not to do a bob, so we're not.
No bobs yet.
Evil laugh. I'm split into my two sections. I'm just going to check my cheat sheet here. So, one of the other key factors we can talk about at this point is tension. So, tension is how much stress is placed onto the hair. So, when I'm creating this line on Allie's hair, I'm using quite a bit of tension because I want it to feel strong, but I'm using elevation, which is another technique, because I want it to be soft at the same time. So tension and even tension will help to guarantee consistency in my entire haircut. So the second that your tension starts to lack, or you have some areas where you're more tense than other areas, that's when the inconsistency starts.
Someone would like to know if you're coming to Canada.
Canada? No, I have not. I have not had a teaching opportunity in Canada just yet, but that would be awesome. Not in the winter though. Let's do summer Canada. All right. So we've completed, for the most part, our zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. All right, so I know that I'm going to go back through and break up the fringe here, so I'm going to leave it for right now and let everything start drying as I work my way through zones 4 and 5 in the back. Oh, cute. Cute little section. Cute little section. Just rogue, all by itself. I'm going to get my water bottle to maintain dampness here. Or not.
Someone would like to know what type of hair you're cutting.
What type of hair? It is, well, it's fine, but there's a lot of it. I don't know if that answers your question. It's colored. We have some natural color peeking through the top here, so it's a little bit lighter, a little bit softer. It's not very, there's not a lot of wave and there's not a lot of curl, but I feel like if you manipulated it and scrunched it and put some sea salt spray in it, that you could get quite a bit out of it. All right, so my back's gonna come towards you, sorry.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, so we're starting in the back here. I'm gonna take a nice middle section. And the back shape is going to be decided from the guideline of the top of my zone 1. So I'm going to pick up zone 1, which naturally becomes a little more triangular, but we're going to go square into slightly round just behind the crown into triangular because I want to maintain length and remove weight. All right? So my vertical shape is technically round in the back through triangular. I want fluid motion, but I also want weight removal, and I want to maintain length at a point.
A lot of people would like to know if this haircut has a name. What type of haircut are you demonstrating?
I wrote down the mini mod shag.
The mini mod shag. Perfect.
So it's tiny.
Market
we have a little bit
quick.
of our mod in the front here with our disconnection, and then we're going to have some soft textured exterior from the hair naturally falling. The mini mod shag, yes. So I'm going to bring up my first section. Boop, drop my hair over. Cut that first guy. Oh yeah. I hate when it doesn't gracefully fall to the floor. And then my next section is going to be just slightly around because I want to remove that corner and hug the head. Round shapes are the head hugging type. But then I'm going to take my last section. Now I could here go really triangular, but I'm going to leave it slightly disconnected. So what I'm going to do, leave the top completely disconnected, find my existing external shape, and cut a triangle into it. All right? And what do we know about short and long hair? Short hair pushes long hair. So in theory, this will sit and help to kind of give the back a little bit more movement by pushing on it. Pushing on it.
Why did you start in the front as opposed to the back?
To show off, if we're talking honestly. No. I enjoy starting in the front when I am working a strong shape on a new client. So I've never cut Allie's hair before, and sometimes it's really nice to get the hardest part, which I feel like is the front, out of the way so that they, as a client, can acclimate and see what's going on and feel at ease about the rest of the haircut. Also, if for some reason it ran over time, then at least everybody got to see the front. So now that I'm working a little bit lower here, I'm just going to find my guideline. So I'm round right here, creating a fluid movement, following the head shape, taking my next section, combing it in, finding my guideline, cutting my triangle. Take my next section, push it forward. For cleanliness, ears are great here. Pew. Bring this up, find my section, make sure that I'm combing and watching my tension. Putting in my round shape, combing again, bringing it into my fingers, making sure that I have everything, especially when you're working with an undercut because sometimes little hairs get stuck. Dropping it down.
If you were doing this in a salon setting,
technically we are. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right.
Okay.
How long would it take you? How long would you be with this client doing this haircut?
Okay. So my new clients I book an hour and a half, but as of recently, with a very in-depth, the past, I would say 6 months review of theory, rewriting the theory, figuring out having a solid plan when I go in to do a haircut, I would say I could do this in about 35 minutes. If I was rushing. If I was taking my time and maybe I didn't have anybody after Allie, I would take the full hour. The part that takes the longest for me is the refinement because I could realistically go through and continue to find every imperfection and want to keep going through and doing it over and over and over again. But I try not to let myself do that anymore. It's really hard. Do that for stuff like this, where I'll make Allie stay for several hours. No, I'm just kidding. Still working through the side.
I'm going to move this light.
Move that light, John.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It's a little bumpy over here. Does that hurt your eyes?
No, that's fine. I can just see very clearly. Just a piece of my own hair in my mouth. Yep, great.
Emily, what does your own educational background look like?
It's a mix. It's a hodgepodge of very many different things. Sassoon, a lot of very Sassoon-influenced teachers, Bumble and Bumble influenced, a little bit of Veda, not a whole lot. Very recently, we, as a salon here, took a class with Ben and James, who are 3 education, and they are Salon trained for the most part, as well as Sassoon trained, and myself and Kyle, who's filming, and Jordan, one of our other educators pretty much went through and took everything that we have learned over the past several years and rewrote our own curriculum. So for me, it's a good mix. I like to feel like I'm almost multilingual in the hair speak, like the hair language, just because I feel like I do a lot of scissor work, but I also do a ton of razor work. I love precision cutting, but I also love making long, beautiful, pretty hair and having someone here balayage it for me and make it look beautiful. So it's a mixture. I think that's kind of the beauty of education, is that you can pick and choose what you want to learn, how you want to learn it, who you want to teach you, etc., etc.
What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is @Costello, which is my last name, Costello, X, like the letter X, cult, C-U-L-T. Costello X Cult. And the X Instagram, oh yes, is Cultivate X. So you'll see on the X Instagram a lot of my work, but mostly everybody else's work here because they are awesome. All right, so we've got our right side working through here. We've got our disconnection. We have our triangular shape, our round shape. This hair pushing on this hair. I'm going to soften this, but we're going to do the same exact thing on the other side. Oh, go. Just low, just creeping. Just like, hey, it's me, your coffee. So I'm going to dampen this side back down. Scoot away.
Scoot away.
All right, just gonna take my vertical section here, split it up into a smaller section, take a section from my zone 1. So I'm taking these sections because I'm taking vertical sections here because I want control of my vertical shape. So you have your vertical shape, okay, which is the shape that if I pulled everything out from the head vertically, you would see the shape that lives in here. And then you have your horizontal shape, which is everything that you see if you were standing like a bird on top of your client and you pulled the hair out in a horizontal section towards yourself. That's your horizontal shape. So those are the shapes that exist within your exterior shape, which is the inside of your haircut. It's very important to understand the shapes that exist within the shapes, because then you can better execute a plan of action when you go in to create a haircut. A lot of times people get really focused on the external shape. So is it round? Is it square? Is it triangular? Yes, that is also very true. You do need to determine what your exterior shape is, but that's only half the haircut. I would argue less than half of the haircut, but you know what? It's just me.
Where did you get the inspiration for this particular haircut?
Half in my brain. I'm obsessed with my very dear friend Paul Stafford. Is a lovely man who is a hairdresser in Ireland. Yes, I'm sorry, Paul, if I literally just made that up as a lie. He is always working really classic yet creative shapes, and I was flipping through his Instagram the other day and saw something that was pretty much a longer version of this, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna put my own twist on this mini modern shag for Allie's hair. Allie also had almost no limitations, and I love that. Allie came in, sat down in the chair, and said that they feel better with short hair, and I said, well then, you're in the right place. So I'm just checking here my new section against my previous section. I'm a little longer on this right side, so I'm going to go ahead and create a guideline that's a little bit shorter for myself. Perfect. And I'm paying attention to, although this is sprouting, which is what we want, because I want movement, I'm making sure that I'm pushing the hair into the cowlick and the position that it lives from the head shape. That's also really important because I feel like we force the hair to go different directions that it doesn't even really necessarily want to go. So by just listening to where it wants to live will alleviate a lot of stress when you're going in to make really strong shapes. Here's my round right here. I'm not going to cut this here, just where I see the guideline. Bring it into my section, find my triangle, cut my triangle. Dampen this back down. So I guess if there's not a lot of questions coming in, I'll talk a little bit about X and R education. So I work and own a shop in Philadelphia called X, and we are about 7 months old, and we are mostly an education, I would say 99%, an education-based salon here in Philadelphia. So what that means is that we spend about 90% of our time, free time, I guess I should say, training both in haircutting and in coloring. We have an apprenticeship program for all of our assistants that is mandatory before they're allowed to start taking clients. Once they complete their apprenticeship, then we have stylist education, which is education for mandatory education for all of our stylists. We split up the Tuesdays, so every first and third Tuesday of the month we have our assistants. So in the morning we close from 10 until about 3, and then we take clients on Tuesdays from 3 until 9. So we are open 6 days a week taking clients. We're closed on Mondays, but that's typically when we do all of our collaborations. So any of the photos that you see on our Instagram or our website are all shot and created by us here at X. But everything that I'm discussing, when I'm talking about shape, when I'm talking about zones, and I'm talking about key factors, those are all things that we teach to our staff. Our staff also goes through pretty tough scissor work training exclusively, and then once they complete that, they go through and do the same exact thing, with the straight razor.
Someone would like to know why you did that big undercut underneath.
The undercut was already there, so I just cleaned it up and made it look a little bit prettier. A lot of times with haircuts like this, you are working with, and well, most haircuts, shapes, undercuts, graduation, layers, everything that already exists. So your job as the hairstylist is to make that work for both you and the client. In this case, I had a little bit more freedom, so I was able to shave it all off, make it look really pretty, and make it a part of the haircut. Because I could. Take my last section here. I'm going to split it into 2 sections like I've been doing. Let it drop down, pick up my last section, separate it from the front, bring it all out. This side is shorter. Bring that guy in. Now, oh man, I'm not even ready for it. I'm going to take my straight razor and remove some of this weight.
Someone would like to know if you teach one-on-ones.
I do, quite a bit. Every last Sunday and Monday of the month, my goal in life is to do one-on-ones because I feel like it's just a lot more intense and we can kind of curate something that's created for you. So if you want more information on the one-on-ones, you can either email me directly. There's a link right on my Instagram, or I also work really closely with the Left Brain group, so you can also email them directly as well. All right, so inside here, take it a little bit over. Dampen that down just a little bit. Close your eyes, one. First of all, I'm going to cut that rogue hair that just appeared out of Allie's ear. Embarrassing. I'll take diagonal sections. I'm going to work with a closed blade.
Do you get a lot of people that travel to have their hair cut by you?
Yes, I would say quite a majority of my clientele is people who travel from, I have DC, I have a couple from New York, actually quite a bit from New York City. North Carolina, I think the farthest is one of my hair friends came all the way from, I believe Portland is where she lives. I'm working with a closed blade diagonally to remove weight from my sections here. Working in diagonal sections gives me equal control over both my horizontal shape and my vertical shape. I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side.
Yep. We have a couple people wanting to know where X is located.
We're in Philadelphia. We're on Fabric Row, which is a very historic part of the city of Philadelphia.
Sorry guys, I'm trying to move these lights. Don't trip and fall.
The hostile people. They're like, we can't see. And the reason that I switched to the razor is because A, I love using both the scissor and the razor for my haircuts. B, it's a little bit easier for me to quickly, working within a time frame, remove weight and add texture to my haircut. And it's fun, most importantly.
Is the razor used just for taking weight out?
In this particular haircut, yes. You can use it, and I do use it for a lot of other purposes. I use it for layering. I use it to create, I do entire haircuts with the razor. I use the razor when I feel like I can't get quite enough weight out with my scissors.
Someone would like to know how you built your clientele with such a diverse group of people wanting avant-garde styles, as some would say.
Yes.
And they're interested in doing that, but they're not sure how.
Okay, two things. One, it takes a fuck ton of time. Two, you have to really be true to yourself as a person. And when I say that, I don't mean over the top, excessive, like, I mean, what do you like to do? For me, I love short hair, so I built a lot of short-haired clients. I also really love switching it up between working really avant-garde or creative haircuts as well as really basic, clean, long, beautiful hair. So my clientele is a really good mix of both because that's genuinely what I enjoy doing. Advice-wise, I would say that for me, promoting myself in both of those ways has been really huge. So Instagram is amazing. It's becoming a little bit more complicated now because they keep changing their algorithms, so sometimes it's harder to kind of get yourself on other people's dashboards, so to speak. But just taking a ton of pictures of the stuff that I enjoy doing, you know, the stuff that you enjoy doing, spending a lot of your time collaborating with other people, working with other people who maybe definitely challenge you. You have to find people that push you, but just being patient, you know, and become really good at the thing that you want to do. So I try very hard every single day to become better at haircutting. I always tell my staff that if ever I walk into the salon and I've decided that that's it, I've learned everything, that they should take it from me and never let me come back. Because I feel like when you get to that level, it's no more good can come from it. So I guess the short end of the story is to just be true to yourself, surround yourself with people that really push you, promote the content that you really like and really want to do, and don't be afraid to, you gotta hustle, you know? I still get out there and try to get involved in as many hair things as I can. So I'm just working through my zone 1 here, removing a little bit of weight. Working diagonally so that I have greatest control over both my horizontal and vertical sectioning. And finding any little rogue hairs that might be longer and just knocking those out of place. All right, so now the boring part. I'm gonna blow dry this really quickly for you and then go through and break up the bangs.
Why did you choose to remove all that weight?
I did not want this to feel as bulky as it was feeling, just because the bulk was forming obviously from the different shapes that I was creating. So a lot of times when you have two different shapes meeting one another, you're going to create a little bit of weight. If there was any slight over direction that I didn't want, that's another thing that can cause the bulk. So I just wanted it to appear a little bit softer because it's a very strong haircut, but I did not want it to feel too strong. Just gonna use my little baby tendon brush. So cute, so small. And while I'm blow drying, I'm always thinking about my final steps. So where am I gonna go from here in terms of this haircut? I'm trying to become better at my wrap drying, which is moderately working. It's moderately okay.
Tell us again where we got your shirt.
It's from a small company called Otherwild on Instagram. I cannot remember the name of the person who actually made it, but I know if you go into the Otherwild Instagram, they have t-shirts, tank tops, what else? Everything. Sweaters. I'm pretty sure they have sweaters of this shirt. But I got it last year on my birthday because I was like in New York. Like I always end up in New York on my birthday. I don't know why. I don't even really love New York too much. And they were having a pop-up shop at the time. So I went in and bought one.
Patty says hello. She's watching from the woods.
Hi, Patty. Clamping. half drying. The whole point is to just wrap the hair around the head so you're following the head shape. So I'm trying to become better at it. I'm not the shining example just yet, but I like how it looks because then I feel like I can either go through and hit my flat iron or let it be natural and the texture that it is and not worry too much about it.
How long have you been cutting hair?
So I officially graduated hair school in 2008, but I probably didn't start taking it seriously until 2011. So officially, probably since I was like 13. But we don't talk about those years. The young years. I would say as an actual professional who gives a shit since 2011. And yes, for those of you that are asking, I did go to hair school when I was in high school because I thought it would be fun and I wanted to go and teach English and music. Boy, was I wrong.
Why do you choose not to use your concentrator on your blow dryer?
Just a habit, truthfully. I feel like with short hair, it's not really necessary because I'm not really trying to concentrate air on anything at this point. If it's below the shoulder, then I'll bust out my concentrator. If the hair is super, super long, that shit would take way too long without a concentrator on the nozzle. So there's the part where it's like, do you just keep talking? Like, how about Game of Thrones, huh?
Don't tell me, I haven't watched the last episode.
Oh yeah, that's right, okay.
No one give anything away.
Yeah. Very sensitive here. Very time sensitive on the Game of Thrones. So after it's mostly dry, I'll move around the dryer a little bit.
Hey, Em. Love you. You're so here.
Oh my god. And rather than leaves work, comes back to work. So my flat iron is heating up. We're gonna go through and refine a little bit and tweak the bangs. So I'm gonna spin back around. We're gonna take a good look at our sides. We're gonna hit this side with the flat iron. We're just gonna take a little section right above our scissor over comb because I can see a rogue. And the beauty of the razor is that I truthfully do not have to do almost any point cutting because I've already taken weight out where I want to take weight out. I'm gonna go through my crown here. I can see one little section here that I'd like to include into my horizontal shape.
What kind of maintenance would you say this haircut would require?
Okay, truthfully, if you wanted to maintain the shortness of it, you could come back in 6 weeks. If, in theory, this haircut would just grow out into a really interesting looking long shag. The sides would fill in, this would get really long and shaggy and sit on top of this, and the back would just become really long. I would say for most of my clients that don't like to maintain or come in for haircuts that often, the average client would be about every 10 to 12 weeks. My short-haired people that love to maintain can go anywhere from 3 weeks to 8 weeks. I think that a really good, strong haircut, no matter how boring or avant-garde that it is, should always grow into something that you can wear for a long time.
What do you charge for haircuts?
I charge $125 for a haircut. So the last two things, we're gonna hit the back of the flat iron really quickly. Shoving all my things into my pockets because I don't have my little cape on. I'm gonna hit these sides. We're gonna take just little diagonal sections here. Could get into the top if you wanted to, but I don't think that I really need to.
What's your recommendation for someone with thinning hair?
Thinning hair. Find a hairstylist that is super willing to work with you if you're feeling that, or or I guess from the client point and from the hairstylist point. Think about haircuts. Think about head shape. Think about where the hair is thinning. Think about what the person is attracted to in terms of, are they okay with it thinning? Would they, I feel like a lot of people would rather not have thinning hair, but a lot of people kind of accept it and just want someone who's patient enough to work with it. I have a lot of clients with really fine hair, and I feel like the ones that are starting to have thinning hair, we are always just trying to come up with a different haircut plan. I'm always looking for the next best thing for them, and I think that they appreciate that more than anything. Trying different shapes, thinking about weight, thinking about where you want that weight to sit, thinking about what it's going to look like, having them come in maybe a little bit more often to maintain a haircut that's going to be more flattering for them.
What kind of flat ironing were you just using?
Oh, this bad boy. This is my ISA Professional flat iron. It's incredible. They sent me one and I was like, yeah, sometimes some companies send you things. They're not that great, but this thing is awesome. It flat irons anything that you could possibly think of. So right here, I have just a little bit, tip your little head for me, of unwanted graduation, and a lot of that is just from my flat iron just now, really accentuating that. So I'm gonna bring that guy down. And then in the back, we're just gonna look at our hair here. I'm just gonna take a little diagonal section. And anywhere that still feels too bulky to me, or too long, or too over-directed, just gonna take that away. These lights are great, but you can see like every little frizzy hair that's like, hey, How's it going? And then finally, we're going to come around to the front. We're going to put our bangs in. The best part. All right, take your head back for me. Cool. Best part for me, worst part for the client. Take a look in the mirror, so
I'll duck this way.
Duck that way. And I want them to feel textured and piecey, but not overly textured. Could you just move to the right for me?
Sorry.
Or left?
Trying to get in on these bangs here.
And then we're gonna hit the hair dryer here. Oh, and the blender apparently. All the wires. And we're gonna grab a little bit of perfect. All right, so here's the modern mini baby shag. So to recap, we split our hair into 6 zones, okay? We have our zone 1 up here through the crown, all right? We worked a square shape here, okay? Slightly rounded technically with the bangs to make sure that everything blended, all right? Then we split up our sections into 2 sides. We have our zone 2, which is our left side, and we have our zone 3, which is our right side. We scissor over combed right at the back of the parietal here, just to remove some weight and create a little bit of height as this hair gets longer. We put a pretty soft yet strong line right in front of Allie's ears here because I feel like it'll look really interesting as it gets longer. And then we worked a round shape through the back here into a disconnected triangular shape. We left the the external shape to be its natural shape. So whatever it was as the triangular shape was instilled. So Allie could wear this a bunch of different ways. Flat iron it, let it just be weird and awesome, and let it get long. You know, they could come back in 2 weeks and we could lop everything off. But that's kind of, you know, up for interpretation. So I'm gonna take the cape off. And we're all gonna look at it without the cape on, which I feel like is much different and a lot cuter. How do we feel, Facebook Live? How do you feel? Can you see with the little glasses on? Yes, look.
We have a lot of heart emojis, so that's good.
Oh, heart emojis, yes, love it. All right, So if you guys have any questions, you can find me on Instagram. I'm Costello X Cult. X is Instagram, which is in Philadelphia. It is Cultivate X. Thank you so much for joining in, and we'll see you next time.